Good morning, everybody. I hope this video finds you well. Today I'm going to start a new DIY series on Worldline travel. This differs from the first one, which is a fixed portal. The fixed portal is very versatile and it's very forgiving. But a small accident can have large consequences. This other technique is one where you construct an actual time machine, a vehicle to travel through time, through space, through dimensional realities. This technique it has limitations, okay? The primary limitation is due to the nature of the equipment used and as well as the size of the vehicle you choose. It's no mistake that Back to the Future chose to use a DeLorean as a time machine. Everybody thought it was funny because it was a comedy, but essentially what you want to do is you want to take something that can move about, put a time displacement mechanism within it, or a dimensional movement mechanism within it, and then use this to go from dimension to dimension to dimension, world line to world line to world line. This is water, by the way. Cup of warm water. And let's be a little clear on what it's capable of doing. You can go anywhere within a point in time, or an apparent point in time. Now, as I said before, there's no such thing as time. Your experience on a world line is time. Now, during your life on that world line, you will know of history of things that happened prior to you being born. Those are historical records. And you can travel back through those historical records or projected paths along your world line. So that's time. You can also do geographic movement. You can drive the car from A to B. And you don't even have to drive the car. You can actually put coordinates in there and put it there. That's the second thing. And the third thing is, of course, dimensional variances. Here's the limitation, though. You're not going to really go to out of the world, out of the norm world lines using this technique. Using the DIY project number 1, which I have still not completed giving you all the videos on and information on. That's still a work in progress, but I know there's some of you that's clamping at the bit for this stuff. So, or chomping at the bit. I'm going to give you this stuff here now. But so the fixed portal can send you anywhere and any strange world line. This one can't. You want to go to a world line where George Washington was never born? Well, it's going to be a tough one on this one. The way this one works is the mechanism. Actually, this is just the first video. I'm just going to just do brief overviews on it. I'm not going to get too involved in the mechanism, but let me just introduce the mechanism. The mechanism searches for similar world lines instead of you specifying them on the first DIY time portal, or the portal. Here it automatically looks for the closest approximation due to the nature of the calibration algorithms. Like the first one, in the first one you used sensors, magnetic flux sensors that looked for gravitational variances. And in this one here too, the more sensors you have, the more accurate your readings are. Now, that being said, you can alter the behavior of those sensors with algorithms to send you off to wild and crazy adventures. I don't know of anybody who's done that. I don't know of any reporting of anybody who's done that either. So, but know that it can occur. Excuse me. I'm wrong. I do know of some that have done that. But they don't do it in a vehicle. It's a fixed device. Their device is in their residence, and they alter it along prescribed coordinate vector families. And that'll probably be DIY project number 3. But I'll just put that off to a side. So we're talking about DIY project number 2, where you make an actual time machine. And I call it a time machine because that's what everybody calls these things, but they're not really a time machine. They're a dimensional displacement machine that's based upon a vehicle. So let's suppose that you go ahead and you get yourself a Cadillac. You get yourself a 2020 Cadillac. And you put this device in the trunk or in the back seat. If you travel into the future with it, you will arrive, say 20 years in the future, driving an antique in perfect condition. It'll be the year 2040, and you're driving a car that's a model 2020, and everybody will say, what a nice, quaint car you have, and it's so good, well cared for. If, however, you go back in time 20 years to the year 2000, people are worrying about Y2K, and you're driving a 2020, people will be like, wow, what car is that? I have never seen anything like that before. So the first problem you need to deal with is come up with a vehicle that is not conspicuous, that does the job. What would that possibly be? I would suggest a very bland and unopposing vehicle. One that's suitable for, and we're going to talk about the time vector right now. Time travel, the apparent time travel, is the most effective use of this. As you move further and back in time, the world lines associated with that particular moment in time upon your world line vector. Does that make any sense? Let me show you. All right, so here is a world line template. I put a grid on it. The intersection of the grids are various world lines. This is your lifeline. Okay, this is your birth, and this is now. Okay, this black line also represents time as you experienced it. right? Now, here is when you were born. At this moment in time that you experienced, the closest approximation of world lines to this lie on a dotted line on this path, because that is the highest probability of other world lines being on the same apparent time relative to yours. I hope you guys are catching me here. All right, there's no absolutes in this. It's all relative to your experiences. It's all relative to your experiences. That's not an absolute past. All right, so let's suppose that this is all the other world lines. They will lie on this path, right? And let's suppose you want to go to some point before time relative, before you were born. That would lie in this realm over here. That should be pretty obvious. It's somewhere over here. But where? This mechanism here will look for the highest common probability, which will be closest on this dotted line to this insertion point onto the template. But it won't be perfect. So you'll go back in time using this machine to some point in time, and it won't be perfect. Let's draw that. So now you will go back in time to say this. And now this is really important, and I'm going to kind of draw it for you. Everything's relative to where you are now, right? With a factor of deviation from that point of origination. Let's look. I drew a line from where you are today through this other world line that is near the time when you were born. Okay? Because it's all relative to here, not relative to here. So relative to here. And as time goes on, depending upon the accuracy of your sensing equipment, you will have a deviation, a delta. Let's draw that in. So now you can see I generated a cone. The further you go, the greater the deviation. Deviation is known as delta, and I'll draw it here on the drawing, okay? That's delta, small, okay? And as you can tell, the further away from your present point of reference, the greater the delta occurs. This is an inherent liability with this mechanism. Okay? It's not true in DIY 1, and it's not true in what I'm going to be talking about, DIY 3. It's only associated with this particular mechanism, which is DIY 2. Okay? Now let's suppose you want to go to this point in time. Say that's when your parents met. Again, let's look at what this point represents. It represents the relative time from the apparent time relative to your point of egress. And if you decide then, once you achieve this point, to go to this point, what will it look like? Let's look. Again, you will try to achieve this point, but inherent deviations are going to cause an offset. Okay. These are accumulative. This delta variance and this delta variance are additive. And since it's a cone, they're additive exponentially. The further in time you go, the wilder the deviations become, and the more travel, visits you make along that path, well then, the more deviance you're going to have. So let's suppose you did this for whatever purposes and you wanted to return. Let's look what happens. So let's look now at the return trip. As you can tell, you're not going to go back at the same point in time dimensionally that you think you are. You actually will be doing dimensional travel. In this DIY 2 exercise, we see that dimensional travel is not something you are able to control, but is determined by the accuracy or inaccuracy of the equipment that you use. This kind of equipment, this type of travel is useful for apparent time travel, but that's its basic limitation. Okay. All right, guys. In future videos, I will talk about the structures and the elements of the mechanism that is used to do this. And there's going to have to be a lot of contextual background as to how you use it. As I said, you just don't pick a Lamborghini and go jaunting around the world, right? It doesn't work that way. Due to the nature of the human lifetime, there's a generational impact on deviation, and after a couple of generations, the deviations get too large for you to maintain a degree of control so you can get back to a place you recognize. As with all these techniques and technologies, there's pluses and minuses. If you're happy and content where you're at right now, I'd advise you not to fuck it up, like Homer did when they said it was raining outside and it was raining donuts. So, you know, there you have it. Anyways, people, I hope you enjoyed this little video, and I hope that it's meaningful to you. If you want to see more along those lines, tell me in the comments. If this is too boring for you, just tell me. I'll cover other subjects. I'm trying to throw a bunch out in a general way to make a lot of people happy, but I'm only one person. On a personal note, I'm still getting over my coronavirus. Really messed up my internal organs, I'll tell you what. My guts are just totally messed up. But we're getting back to things. I'm also going to be making some changes to Metallic Man. That's down the pipe. Okay, everybody, take care, and know I believe in you.